Welcome to the One Stop Podcast. I'm Jesse with Michael and Prabhat. We got a lot of basketball news that went on this weekend, a bunch of good games, and we're just going to get right into it on this Monday morning. So we're going to start off with the Jazz coming up short on Friday against the Clippers in Game 6. What are you guys' initial thoughts on that game?
It was surprising. I think Prabhat and I were both very confident, and we kept saying the Clippers were done after Kawhi went out. And we were wrong. Paul George he reclaimed his status, I think, and he kind of saved his legacy. Like we were talking about, it was a legacy game for him, Game 5. And, he showed out, they won. And then I, again, didn't expect them to close out Game 6. They did. They had more help this time. Terrence Mann with the career night, which was, he's been good all year, but you don't expect that, really. Reggie Jackson has become, like, their guy. He's a go-to scorer. But this has to be seen as a big fail for the Jazz.
Yeah, you finished the season as the number 1 seed. You have all these expectations. And then on top of it, Kawhi Leonard's not playing, the clear number 1 on that team. And they lost both the games he didn't play in. It's got to be heartbreaking if you're a Utah fan. Donovan Mitchell, he's getting to that superstar conversation if he's not already there. He had an incredible series and incredible playoffs, but I don't know what you have to say if you're the Jazz right now. Rudy Gobert, who was the defensive player of the year, did not look like the defensive player of the year in Game 6. I think some of the hate that's been coming towards him and that's been directed towards him in recent games has been a little unjust, simply because you can't base the whole year off of one game, but in a game like that you have to come up big, and he didn't, and a lot of the other guys didn't show up either. And so it's tough for Mitchell, tough for the Jazz fans, but credit to Paul George and the Clippers. Playoff P has finally arrived. I think the pandemic P narrative is gone now.
I gotta give a big shout out to Paul George. I don't know, it was something that I saw in him that I just said, hey, Paul George is gonna be that guy again. He's looking like Indiana Paul George. He's coming up big. His shots looking real good. His movements are smooth. He's just getting to his spots. And I think now that he is like the Batman on the team, not just the Robin, I think he feeds off that energy, taking the number 1 role, and he's been rolling with it ever since. Now, I'm not saying that they can go to the final. I don't think they can go to the finals without Kawhi. Not at all. But he stepped up big. Terrence Mann, no one expected him to step up. But my biggest takeaway from that game comes at Quinn Snyder and his lack of adjustments during the game, especially in that third quarter when the Clippers went on that 3-point barrage. My thing was it was gonna be small ball versus big ball. You either had to take away the 3 from the Clippers, or you had to stop them from driving to the lane. And we have Rudy Gobert. Yes, he was a defensive player of the year, but he's not accustomed to being out on the perimeter like how the Clippers did. So every time Terrence Mann was open for the 3, all he had to do was just raise up and shoot, because Rudy Gobert was gonna give him the space to shoot it, and he made him pay for it. So right then and there, I thought Quinn Snyder should have went to a smaller lineup, maybe go with Clarkson, Bogdanovich, Mitchell, Conley, maybe Niang, just to get some size and some shooting out there, because Gobert honestly hurt them. I think Gobert really hurt them.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but the difference between the Suns and the Jazz is DeAndre Ayton is big and he can be slow sometimes, but he's a threat on offense, so Clippers can't really play small against them. But for the Jazz, Nick Batum was able to guard Gobert because he doesn't have like a low post game really. And then on the Clippers offensive side, they're just so much faster. And Nick Batum's he's not going to slice you up, but he can drive past Gobert like all the time. So that was a big issue. Do you guys think the Jazz need to make a big trade? Because I think they do from this series. They need more help for Donovan.
Honestly,
yeah, if they do, I'm not sure. Honestly,
I don't think they do. Personally, I just think because if you look at the game, they were up 27.
Yeah, I think so.
They were up huge. That was their the Clippers game, or that was their game to lose. That was the Utah Jazz's game to lose, and they blew it. I'm going with Jesse. I think it was just a big fail on Quinn Snyder's part. I don't I don't know about that if Utah needs Kuzma, but I mean, you've got to look at Quinn Snyder. The adjustments there, obviously, Terrence Mann. You can't let I don't even know if you call him an option. He went for 39 points. I just don't know if you're gonna allow yourself to be beat by Terrence Mann. And in that situation, as the number 1 seed, you've got to be able to make an adjustment. And he had time. 27 points is a big cushion. That's a lot of time for you to make adjustments, get Gobert off the floor, go small ball like Jesse said. Make whatever adjustments you need to. I mean, being one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, it's not often you see a team like the Jazz give up leads like that and ones that are that sizable. So I still think they're a good, well-rounded team. I think Donovan Mitchell's shown that he can do it, and he will continue to do that. It wouldn't hurt to bring in another guy, obviously, but then I ask, who's that guy? If the Jazz do end up bringing in one more guy to this already stacked team, who is that guy?
My thing, were you guys really surprised that the Clippers came back like that? Honest opinion.
Yes,
I was surprised. Once they went down that much, I didn't think they were coming back.
Personally, I was surprised a little bit, but then you got to keep in account that this is the best 3-point shooting team in the league, and I think league history too, percentage wise. And how do they beat the Jazz? 3-pointers. So you got to kind of take that perspective as well. But it was a chess match. It was a chess match. The Utah Jazz didn't make adjustments, and the Clippers just kept doing what they were doing. 3-pointers, cutting to the basket. Nicholas Batum. Honestly, I gotta give big props to Nicholas Batum, because how many times did he go into the lane and just dunk the ball over Gobert or anyone in the lane? And I've never seen that side of Batum. So you gotta give big ups to Batum. Patrick Beverley also stepped up in making threes. That's when I knew that they were gonna win, when Patrick Beverley made that one corner three late in the fourth quarter.
From like 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Patrick Beverley's hitting a three that deep, the game.
Yeah, if Patrick Beverley's making shots like that, then it's a done deal. It's a done deal. And I think Donovan he got tired. Yeah. He looked tired. The ankle looked like it was bugging him. They just couldn't get anything to go at the end. Have fun in Cancun. That's all I'm gonna say. But we're gonna go to our next game right now. How the Bucks found a way to finish off the Nets in Game 7. So Game 6 was also this past weekend, and KD just had himself a monster game. Many looked at Giannis and said, "Where is he at? This guy's gonna step up for Game 7," because he's notoriously known for not showing up in big time games. But we had a dispute in our group message regarding Giannis, saying he's a Robin, not a Batman, and I entirely don't see that at all. But big up to the Greek Freak for finally showing up. He didn't. My only takeaway that I didn't like from that game was he didn't guard Kevin Durant as often as I think he should have.
Can we say that this is the new game of the year with the way this one went down? I think it has to be up there. I mean, Durant.
I would say so.
Durant was a toenail from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Seriously. That shot, I thought it was a 3 when he originally shot it. I thought the game was over on my phone in my car because thank you, NBA streams. But I thought it was over. But you go back to the replay and then you see his foot's on the line. And then I don't know what Budenholzer was drawing up the play before with Brooke Lopez. That was rough. And then the next play with Giannis on that baseline fade, I don't know. But they crawled out of that one, the Bucks. They got lucky. That's what I would call it. They got lucky.
You know, I read something. I don't know if it's true, but it said Durant wears a size shoe like bigger than what he actually is. So like he's more comfortable in the game. So maybe if he wore the correct size, he would have been behind the 3. But I mean, I don't know about that. But I mean, you kind of just have to like bow down to how good Durant is. And you could see it like in overtime in the last shot, you could see he was just winded and he was just like his legs were dead. But I was surprised by I mean, I think we all predicted the Bucks winning the series. So good for us.
I think I called Bucks in 7.
I said Bucks in 5.
Oh, okay.
I think I said 6, so Prabhat was right.
Hey, we all said Bucks. We all said Bucks. We got it.
There you go, Prabhat. You got it right again.
Appreciate you, my man.
I was a little surprised by how Drew Holiday just continued to struggle. I think he's gonna have to step it up. But Middleton again did what the Bucks need him to do, and he kind of acts as the closer. I agree. Giannis is a Batman. I mean, he was MVP twice. That's not a fluke. I would love to. I mean, he's supposed to be the defensive player of the year. I would have loved to see him kind of take control and say, "I'm guarding Durant now," but we didn't see that.
No.
Big ups to Drew Holiday for stepping up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
those 8 points were he couldn't get any. If you were to get your 8 points in any time in the game, the fourth quarter was the perfect time for him to show out. Middleton was doing Middleton things. The pull up jumper, 3-pointer, the 4-point play on James Harden. Great game overall by the Bucks. And Game 7 reminded me of two playoff blunders that happened in not so long ago. Brook Lopez reminded me of J.R. Smith because he didn't know what time of the clock. And I thought Kevin Durant was gonna Kawhi Leonard the Bucks with that last shot. Honestly, because who else could make that shot besides KD?
It was like the same shot as the end of regulation. It was like the same thing.
Yeah.
I expected it to go in.
Speaking of that shot, I wanted to ask you guys a question. So obviously Durant played the whole game, the whole 52 minutes. I think he got 1 minute of rest with the 5 minutes of overtime, but somewhere in regulation. But do you guys blame Steve Nash for not giving him more rest? I understand that you need to have your best player on the floor throughout a Game 7 that's this important, but do you think Steve Nash is to blame? Because the big thing at the end of the game was his legs gave out. His legs came up short. I think we talked about the coach earlier about Quinn Snyder. I think we should be talking about Steve Nash too. I don't think he did a great job coaching the series either.
But do you really think Steve Nash controlled what Durant? Like, do you think if Durant really needed to come out, he would have been like, "Okay, let me get a minute," or do you think? Because I think maybe Steve Nash was like, "Hey, Kevin, let's take a seat for a couple minutes," and then Durant says no. That's what I think he would do. Because I mean, he's a competitor. He's trying to win. I think it was like maybe half and half, but I think Durant was a big reason he didn't sit.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I think Steve Nash, being a former player, an all-time great, he understood the situation at hand, and I'm pretty sure inside he wanted to give Kevin a rest, but he knew the competitor, like Michael said, he knew the competitor in Durant that he wasn't going to do it. So I'm pretty sure they had a conversation that, Kevin, if you want out, just let me know. I'll give you a quick second. So I don't really blame it. I don't blame Steve Nash unless Durant was injured like previously. Then yes, I would blame Steve Nash for even trying to put him out there with the injured body. Because the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about that was the 2013 Kobe Achilles tear when Mike D'Antoni kept playing him, and he blew his Achilles out. So I don't think he did a bad job. I think he had to do what was necessary because if all those times that Durant was out there, if he wasn't out there, then the game could have been blown open because we saw James Harden wasn't himself at all. He wasn't running the fast break like he usually does. Had no burst of speed. So you had to go with your best guy like that with Durant.
That's the thing that surprised me too is that James Harden played the whole game too, even though he looked. I mean, I imagine he was out there because he's James Harden and he can be used as a decoy even when he's hurt. But like, he's playing the full game on what you say, like a really bad strained hamstring.
Yeah, he's like great right before a tear.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that can turn into a tear just from playing but I would have thought you give Harden a couple minutes of rest so he can be more useful at some point.
It's tough. I mean, when you have the hamstring injury like that, you always want to monitor it, but it's James Harden. That's an arguable top 5, definitely top 10 player. So you want to have him on the floor as soon as possible. But yeah, I mean, especially the overtime. I mean, he had 2 good looks on wide open threes, and he missed both of them. I was thinking if he hits one of them, honestly, I think Brooklyn takes the lead because either one of those would have put them up 5, and that's hard to come back from in an overtime that's short. So it's tough for them. Obviously, I think James Harden looked winded too. I think both of those guys were winded. It doesn't matter who you are, even if you're maybe outside the exception of LeBron James, but you're going to get tired if you're playing the whole game. And I think that's just what happened. I think we definitely saw it at the end of the game with Durant. We saw it for definitely with Harden on some of those shots coming up short. It was a tough situation. So I get what you guys are saying about Nash being put in that situation, but it just makes you think about, what the best course of action is. Maybe that 1-2 minutes may have changed things, but it's tough to say. We don't know.
I got one final thought for you guys. All right. So now that we saw the whole Brooklyn experiment somewhat, because we didn't really get to see them all together as often as we should have. Mm-hmm. Do you do anything different, or what? Or what do you guys think they do differently from this offseason?
Make sure that their stars stay healthy. That's a bottom line.
I think the way to do that is I think what really hurt him is Spencer Dinwiddie's out, and we'll talk about that later, that he's declining his player option, but they need someone on the bench that can, like, a reliable scorer, so they can be comfortable. Because I don't know if you'll ever sit all 3 of them at the same time for like an extended period of time. But when you sit 2 or 1 of them, you need someone else to come in and score, so the load isn't always on the 3 of them.
Yeah, I think it's just health. If they can stay healthy, I don't think anyone's stopping them. Just got to stay healthy.
So with that being said, we're going to go off to another great game that we had yesterday with the Atlanta Hawks pulling off a surprise upset and knocking off the Philadelphia 76ers. What are you guys' initial thoughts from this game?
Another missed prediction from I was so convinced, even until the last quarter, I thought the Sixers were going to win. They threw it away.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What did we say? We said Sixers in 5, Sixers in 4.
I had Sixers in 6.
Yeah,
I think I had it in 5.
Yeah, I don't think we were. I think I had 5 or 6 as well. We didn't think this was going to be close, but oof. I think the craziest part about this is that Trae Young pretty much struggled for 3.5 quarters. He didn't look good for 3.5 quarters, and they were able to stay in the game. I don't know if you credit that to Kevin Huerter having the game of his life or the Philadelphia 76ers not being able to score the basketball. Tobias Harris looked terrible. Ben Simmons, I think we should get into him. We're
gonna get on Ben Simmons.
Yeah, we're gonna get into Ben Simmons in a little bit. We'll have a little segment just for him, so we'll save him for later. I mean, honestly, Embiid always had a great game, but besides the typical scorers who Seth Curry's been reliable, Joel Embiid, those other guys that you look for to come through and make those plays, they weren't there. So from a whole team perspective, and especially Doc Rivers, I've been on the coaches' heads today for some reason, but Doc Rivers more than anybody, I'm fed up with Doc Rivers. I'm serious. He has talent every single year and always comes up short. He always does it. He did it for 7 years or 8 years or however long he was there with the Clippers. He always came up short, never made a Western Conference Finals. This year he had arguably the second most talented roster in the Eastern Conference and had a great opportunity to go to the Eastern Conference Finals against a Hawks team that's just not as good as them, and they couldn't do it. Doc Rivers needs – if you're gonna point this at somebody, if you're gonna point this series at somebody, I'm pointing at Doc Rivers. He's got to be the one you're looking at. I don't know how you lose this.
My biggest takeaway of this game comes from the Atlanta side, actually. I got to give big ups to John Collins and Clint Capella. The reason why I'm giving them big props is because they showed that they weren't afraid of Embiid's power anymore. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but they weren't afraid of Embiid as they did in the beginning of the series. They looked like they were ready to. They stepped up. Although Embiid did have their number at certain times, they weren't afraid. They didn't back down. They still played on. They still played great defense on him. So I gotta give big ups to those guys. But let's talk about Kevin Huerter right now. Of all the options that the Hawks have, you have Trae Young, you have Bojan Bogdanovic, Gallinari, Lou Williams, and who saves the day? Kevin Huerter. Of
What a
all people,
surprise.
who would have thought Kevin Huerter of all people? Big ups to that guy. I think it was I think he recognized the moment when he got fouled for 3 and he sunk in off 3 free throws. So I gotta say, he looked kind of nervous on some of those free throw attempts. But dude came through for them. I want to say he had like 26 points, 26 big points though. So big shout out to him. And he honestly, I want to say he opened up the floor for Trae Young because Trae Young couldn't get anything going offensively until that fourth quarter. And Kevin Huerter was the one who was bringing them up with his scoring outbursts. So big up to Kevin Huerter for stepping up. He was the player of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and quickly before we get into Ben Simmons, because we are going to get into Ben Simmons for a minute. But like you said, Jesse, Kevin Huerter being able to take some of that offensive, action away from Trae Young, being the focus of that offense for a little bit, it helped Trae Young come up at the most important part of the game. Because if you watch those last 6 minutes, he played well. He was getting dimes, and he was finally able to get that little floater going in the lane. He was scoring. He got a mid-range jump shot. Trae Young, even though he struggled for the majority of the game, I think he showed real leadership at the end of that game. He played very well. He got clutch buckets, and I think you've got to give credit to him too.
All right, I got one more thing before we go into Simmons too. If we just take this game in isolation, I think the Sixers, which no one's talking about this reason that I think is the reason they lost, but if they had Danny Green, I think they would have won the game, even with how bad Simmons played, how bad Tobias played, because the way Huerter was killing the Sixers was when Curry was guarding him. But if Danny Green was there, that would have been Danny Green guarding Huerter. So I don't think Huerter would have had this big of a game. And if we're taking everything, if Trae had struggled too and Huerter struggled, I think the Sixers would have won. And I mean, Danny Green's not like the biggest name. You can't blame the whole series on him and all their struggles. There's much deeper issues. But just for this game, I think if they had Danny Green, they'd be in the conference finals. But let's get into Ben Simmons. Let's really dig in.
It is time.
All right, Prabhat, we're gonna let you go first. Do they keep Ben Simmons or do they trade him?
Nah, he's out. Ben Simmons is done. I have always been a huge Ben Simmons supporter. I think I've come on this podcast and I've openly defended Ben Simmons multiple times. But what I saw last night and what America saw last night was unacceptable. That was a terrible Game 7 performance. I think the point where everyone was like, "What are you doing?" was when he got around. I can't remember who it was guarding him, but got a little spin move in the post, wide open layup right in front of him, and what does he do? Little shovel pass to Tybull, who ends up missing a free throw. And Embiid called him out after the game, which I was not expecting. Embiid called him out on that. Obviously, the world called him out on that for sure. But I think I saw a graph, and it was like Ben Simmons in this series has only taken 3 shots in the fourth quarter. And if you look at Ben Simmons, he just gets into the low post on the left side every single time down the floor. He sets a screen, runs down to the left post, and just stands there. He is an offensive zero, and I used to say, what he does defensively and passing the ball, all that stuff, makes up for that. It doesn't, because they're playing a 4-on-5 essentially. They really are playing a 4-on-5 whenever Ben Simmons is on that floor. If you need to stop, he's your guy. He can do that. But until he gets a jump shot, I don't know who realistically wants to take Ben Simmons. Like, do either of you guys want Ben Simmons on your team?
Nah,
I don't.
Not really.
I got LeBron.
Exactly. He's got to improve that. Until he gets an offensive game going with the way the NBA is shifting, where everything is offense, everything is scoring. If you don't have some type of go-to move, some offensive game, there is no place for you in this league. So, Ben Simmons, man, from me, Prabhat Seelamsetti, pick it up, bro.
There you go, Prabhat. There you go.
What a call out. For me, the only thing that I think was unfair to Simmons is in Doc Rivers' interview after the game, and someone asked him, do you think Simmons is a championship level guard? And Doc Rivers said, I don't know. Doc Rivers is still the Sixers coach, and Ben Simmons is still a Sixers player. You got to back up your guy. Like, that's your job to protect your team. But aside from that, Simmons had a pretty terrible series, pretty terrible playoffs, like second half to the season, pretty much. I think even before he gets his jump shot, he just needs to go back to being aggressive, because he was scoring with like 18 a game, 16 a game without shooting a jump shot. He was getting into the lane, dunks, putbacks, but he's not doing that anymore. And I think it's just because he's scared. And I think all the noise has gotten to his head. But I think this was his last game in a Sixers jersey. I think there's a market for him still, because he still has so much potential. And I think he could go to a team. I think the best option would be to a team like the Blazers, and the Sixers get McCollum. There's some package around that. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think that would be a pretty good situation. And then Ben Simmons actually becomes a power forward.
My take on the whole, if he does go to the Sixers, then Lillard's out. For sure, Lillard's out of there. Because they both need the ball in their hands to be successful. Simmons, honestly, we saw what he does without the ball. He can't. He clogs up the paint because he's not a threat from the perimeter. You can sag off him all you want for a double team when the drive comes. So I think if Simmons goes to the Blazers, then Lillard's out. But my thing with the whole Doc Rivers interview or post game interview was when he said that he's not a championship level caliber point guard. I'm not entirely sure about that, because the dude is 6'10", 240. He's only 24 years old. Although he really hasn't improved much since coming into the league, he still has room for improvement. A jump shot, you can get a jump shot. It's the things it's the other intangibles that he has that you can't really teach others, like the playmaking, rebounding, defending. There's a lot of good to Ben Simmons, and the only bad, honestly, is his mentality. Because I think when Nate McMillan went to the hack of Ben or hack of Simmons, whatever you want to call it, that messed with him, and I think that's the honest reason why he passed out to Thibault instead of going for the dunk, because he thought Gallinari or Trae Young was going to foul him. And we know Ben Simmons is notoriously not known for making free throws, especially in the crunch time. So my thing with Ben Simmons is gotta get in the gym this summer. Don't worry about all this other workout stuff. All you gotta do is work out your jumper. Get a little jump hook in the post. Get a little shimmy. Get a little fadeaway. At least something, because we've seen I'm gonna compare this to Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball couldn't shoot when he got here to the league, but ever since then, he's stepped up. He's improved his jump shot. So that just shows that you can improve your jump shot. Just got to put the time in and the work. And for Ben Simmons, I liked his post-game interview where he owned up to his mistakes. He knew he messed up. He knew he could have been better. It was a bad series for him. So I think he's going to go into this offseason with a clear head and a focused mind, thinking, okay, this is what I got to do to get our team over the hump. I think Doc Rivers, when he said he's not a championship level point guard, I think he's kind of playing some mental game with him, trying to see if Ben Simmons really is that guy. Because if Ben Simmons does take that I don't want to say Mamba mentality, but kind of like a Mamba mentality, like taking it as a challenge and proving his coach and his fans and on the whole league around wrong. Then I think it's gonna be a scary sight to see a Ben Simmons who could shoot.
Speaking of Lonzo Ball, they kind of, I mean, this is kind of trivial, but they kind of look like they have the same form where one of their elbows like pops way out. And I've seen videos of Lonzo now, and it's like completely fixed. So I think just Ben Simmons just needs to, I think first, something in the low post, like some go-to move that he can always, like a jump hook or something, and then free throws. The mid-range game, I think that will come, and that's not needed yet, but just the free throws and something down low. Because then if he's not scared to get fouled, then he can do what he's been doing and drive, get fouled, make the free throws. But free throw, you got to make the free throws. He's getting paid so much money.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Just offense is the biggest thing for him. We already know. Everyone knows he can do everything else on the floor, and he does everything else extremely well. But today's NBA demands some kind of offensive skill set. And so, like you said, I think, honestly, scoring the basketball has been something that has regressed in his career. It's like you said, he averaged 18 one year.
I think there's 16 or 17, something like that.
Something like that. He wasn't terrible. And I saw a clip of him in Summer League. He was confidently shooting a mid-range jumper. I don't think he's incapable of making a jump shot. But like Jesse, like you said, he's just got to get in the gym. Like just fix it. It's the same thing with some of these guys. Like we talk about it with Giannis all the time. Like how good would Giannis be if he could shoot the ball? He'd probably be the best player in the league if he could shoot the ball.
I like how you brought up Giannis because there's people who are comparing the two because they both have a lack of jump shot and both lack making free throws in the clutch time. But my thing is, Giannis isn't afraid of taking that shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we make the distinct difference between the two. So Giannis is better than Ben Simmons.
Yeah, no question. But yeah, get in the gym, man. Get a jump shot. Get something, or like Michael said, get a low post shot, whatever. Get some kind of offensive upside.
I think a lot of it is in his head too. Like because what you're saying, like we saw him make jump shots, and we see him like in warm up a lot. Warm up's different than a game, obviously, but he's making threes constantly. But he's in his head a lot, and I think it like all the pressures got to him. Not the pressure, but every time there was all the things he hasn't made a three in 2 years. Yeah, it's just and especially passing the ball off the dunk. I think he's in his head, and he's like, oh, if I get fouled and I miss these free throws, something's gonna happen.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to the Eastern Conference Finals between the Bucks and the Hawks. Who would have thought this would have happened? We thought the Bucks would be there, but who thought Ice Trae and the Hawks would be there too?
Yeah, you took the words out of your mouth. But you could not have guessed this. Everyone was.
You really couldn't have.
One for sure, you had Brooklyn. Like the thought Brooklyn wouldn't even make the Eastern Conference Final. Like people would have laughed at you if you said that a few months ago. But the lock is no longer there. Like they're not even in a position to play. And then you've got the Atlanta Hawks coming in, who really were under everyone's radars. They weren't favored against the Knicks. They definitely weren't favored against the Sixers. And now they're here with a chance to make their first NBA Finals since they said 1970.
Before they were the Atlanta Hawks, when they were the St. Louis Hawks, I think.
1969 or 79, I don't know. It's been forever since they have been to an NBA Finals. So honestly, I think this is going to be a pretty entertaining series. I don't think we can write the Hawks off anymore. They're legit. They compete somehow, some way every series. Oh, you don't think so?
I'll let you finish.
Okay. I think from a matchup standpoint, like you can't really look at the Hawks and be like, oh yeah, they've got a shot. You wouldn't. On paper, it's a huge distinction. But based on what we've seen these playoffs, we've seen teams get hot at the right times. Like the Miami Heat last year. I don't think they were the best team in the Eastern Conference by a long shot. I don't think they were close to the best team. And they made it to the NBA Finals and took 2 games off the Lakers. So the Hawks right now are hot. They look good. And I think they can compete. Now, do I think they're going to win? No. They might win now that I just said that because for some reason we just don't get this podcast and the Hawks just don't mesh well. But who knows? I think this is going to be a good series for sure. With the way they've been playing, we know Giannis is going to rise to the occasion. He's got to make. I mean, this is do or die for Giannis, right? He's got to make the finals here against this team, this situation. I'd say so.
I think. All right, I'm gonna say it already. Bucks and 6.
All right.
Bucks and 6. I want to say the biggest difference why the Sixers didn't do it, we went over. Ben Simmons was the X factor why they didn't win it, and Danny Green. Now let's see what the Bucks have. They have, like we said, people tried making the comparison of Giannis and Ben Simmons. You already have Giannis who's not afraid to take it in the hole and who's not afraid to take. Well, he is afraid sometimes to take free throws, but generally now he stepped up within the last 2 games. He stepped up to take big time free throws. So from that mental aspect, I think they have an advantage. From a health aspect, the Bucks are all healthy. They have everyone there fully ready to go. Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, Giannis, Brooke Lopez, Bryn Forbes. The only one they don't have is Dante DiVincenzo. But I don't think that's going to play that much of a factor in this series. My thing is, I think Drew Holiday is going to have – I don't know if he'll have his way with Trae Young, but he's going to make it difficult for him. And maybe, I don't know, maybe if you want to, you play PJ Tucker. You have some instances of PJ Tucker on Trae Young just for the physical standpoint, because we saw how disruptive he was with Kevin Durant. So if you think about a smaller but faster guard in Trae Young, how much can he disrupt Trae Young? And the refs are going to let him play because it's the conference finals. So I'm not sure, but I think Giannis, he sees the opportunity that's at hand, and I think he's going to take advantage of it because, like you said, all expectations now are that he has to win because he has the matchup. He has all the advantages to him. So I got Bucks and 6.
I mean, you guys pretty much touched on everything. I'm going to have to go with the Bucks as well. I think they're just I think they're a tougher matchup for the Hawks than the Sixers, especially seeing how Simmons played and how Tobias Harris struggled so much. The one-on-one matchups for the Bucks, I think they win it pretty much down the line, except maybe Drew Holiday to Trae Young. I think Chris Middleton will have his way a lot of the time. I don't think the Hawks have that elite wing defender, especially since DeAndre Hunter's hurt. So I'm going to go Bucks in 5.
That's a good one.
All right. The only thing for me when I look at this series is who's guarding Giannis. Realistically, I don't think
you're going to put Collins on them.
Yeah.
I guess. But I don't think anybody realistically has a good shot of stopping Giannis. I mean, Giannis still had 40 in that Game 7, so I think he's risen to the occasion this playoffs. I think that kind of went unnoticed, honestly, with the way Durant played. People kind of just forgot Giannis had 40, so he's been great all playoffs. Responded against the Heat, played well last series, and now he's got the chance to go to his first NBA Finals. But despite all that, despite the paper matchup, I'm going to make a take that has no logical backing. No, I shouldn't make this take, but I'm going to do it anyways, just because, I don't know, this NBA playoffs has been really unpredictable. So I'm going to say something crazy.
No.
I'm going to say something crazy. I've got Ice Trae and the Hawks in 6.
Oh.
Now feel free.
You jinxed it.
Feel free to roast me, make fun of me, have a whole session just to bring up the clip where I said this and make fun of me if they do lose. We can do that because this is probably one of the worst takes I've ever had. But I'm going Hawks in 6.
Who knows? I mean, the Bucks lost to the Heat last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's the playoffs. Anything could happen. It's the playoffs. But dang, you're going on a limb on that one.
Did anybody have the Hawks beating the Sixers? Like, no chance. Nobody in their right mind would have thought it. And I do think, honestly, I think the Bucks and Sixers match up pretty evenly. I think that's a series that would have gone to 7. They're both very good teams. But the Hawks they're just hot right now, man. Defensively, they're not good, but offensively, if they can keep doing this, who knows? I almost said Hawks in 5, but I thought that would.
I'm about to say, like, chill.
That's too much.
Yeah.
I almost said Hawks in 5, but I'm gonna go Hawks in 6. Feel free to bring this up if it doesn't happen, and you guys can roast me accordingly. I will allow it.
All right then. So we're gonna jump over to the Western Conference Finals, and we're got the matchup of the Suns and the Clippers. So game 1 was yesterday on Father's Day, and Devin Booker shined in his debut in the conference finals. What are you guys' initial thoughts? Especially he did it without CP3.
He's got to be in the superstar combo.
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm surprised because, I mean, we've been talking about how impressive Booker's been, but I'm a little surprised that he's such a good playmaker. Mm-hmm. But I mean, obviously the Suns are better with Chris Paul, but they don't look like they're in trouble without him. So I mean, Devin Booker looked great. DeAndre looked great. The Suns they're hot right now, like the Hawks are.
And I don't know if we've gotten a word on Kawhi, but I'm assuming that Kawhi's probably not going to be coming back for this series. Unless
I know they said game 1 and 2.
Because he's not traveling. So, I mean, I don't know.
If Kawhi can't play, it's hard to imagine that the Clippers win this. But you have to give credit to the Clippers too, especially Paul George. Like we said at the beginning of the show, he's broken out of the pandemic peace stigma. He looks like he's in that indie mindset. He looks like he's ready to play for all that money he's being paid. He's deserving of that contract right now. He had a good game 1. I know his field goal percentage wasn't great, but he played well, I think. Reggie Jackson, I think we talked about him too. He looks like the real second option right now because he's consistently doing it game in, game out. And then all over the team, you've got Batum, who's doing things everywhere. He's shooting the 3 well. He's making defensive plays. Every guy on that team. And then Terrence Mann stepping up in the biggest game of his life. So I don't want to write the Clippers off necessarily. If Kawhi does come back, I think this will go to 7. And if it does, 0-2 Kawhi is real, by the way. I think we've seen it now. 0-2 Kawhi, it's a real thing. He's with the mass Kyries, or he's with the mass LeBrons and mass Kyries, all those hoodie mellows. He's in that category now. So, but realistically, if they get down 0-2, it's going to be tough. But I think they can go to 7 if Kawhi comes back. And at that point, I think it's a toss-up. But without Kawhi, I would probably say Suns in 6, because Chris Paul should be back by 5 and 6, and that changes a lot.
He might probably join the LA trip, maybe. I want to say. My biggest thing was I thought this would be a blowout for either one of the teams, honestly, because you got the Suns who had a while to rest after sweeping. They swept the Nuggets. After sweeping the Nuggets, they had like a good week off. I want to say about half a week.
No, full week, I think.
A full week.
Yeah.
See, if you don't play for a week, that generally some rust will show. And for the Clippers, I thought they were gonna burn out because that's 2 7-game series that they've been in. So I was expecting a blowout from one of these 2 teams, but we didn't see that. We got a really good game. Devin Booker showing up big, especially with Chris Paul out. He's taking more of that leadership role that I think he had when he was the only option there by himself in Phoenix for all those years. I'm not surprised as much of the 40 points, but I am surprised about the 10 assists or 11 assists, double-digit assists. I am super surprised about that. I'm surprised about the 10-plus rebounds because I didn't see that coming because he's generally only known as a scorer. So if you think about all those times without Chris Paul, who are his point guards? He had Ricky Rubio. He had
Tyler Eulis.
Tyler Eulis. He had all these point guards who were just feeding him the ball, but instead,
Javon Carter was there too.
well, he's still there. He's still there. But
Tyler Johnson too.
Tyler Johnson. He had all these point guards, but they were just feeding him the ball. So now I think him initiating the offense and actually getting others involved, that's developed his game to put him in a whole different level now, to make him the superstar. I think that was the one thing that was holding him back, winning games and then making others around him better instead of himself. So Chris Paul.
No, you go.
Chris Paul helped him, I want to say, with that. Kind of opened his floor, his vision to look at others. The mid-range jumper is there. I want to say that was kudos from Chris Paul, because if you look at it, all the mid-range jumpers were like Chris Paul jumpers off the pick and roll, snake dribble, pull up from the free throw line. So big ups of Devin Booker and all that. And I made a tweet about this. Nike has to give him his own signature shoe after this season. The Booker ones. They need the Booker ones. If Paul George has his own shoe, Devin Booker needs his own shoe.
That's fair, yeah. People are already comparing him to Kobe.
I see it. As someone who's watched the Mamba, they're similar movements.
Yeah, they play similar.
They play exactly similar, and they're not afraid of the moments. I will say Devin Booker is more of a talker than Kobe is, because Kobe, he never initiated talking like Booker does. So I will say that Booker is more brash than Kobe was, but overall, same mentality, same type of game. Footwork is impeccable for both players. The sky's the limit for him, honestly. Sky's the limit.
I think really the only realistic way the Clippers can win games without Kawhi is it with using DeMarcus Cousins a lot, which they did in game 1. They used him way more than they used him against the Jazz, because DeAndre Ayton scores and Rudy Gobert doesn't. So they need a big to match up with him, because DeAndre Ayton will bully Marcus Morris or Nick Batum. So I think Cousins will play a lot more coming up, because they saw when he was in, they played him way better. And the physicality that he brings against the opposing big is good. And he can spread the floor. So I think that's their kind of win condition. I mean, Paul George is going to keep playing good, it looks like. Reggie Jackson played good. Terrence Mann didn't really have a big game. I think Paul George took on a huge load this game, more than he took in even game 6 against the Jazz. I think he's going to need Terrence Mann to kind of show up more. He's going to need Reggie Jackson. He's going to need Marcus Morris, DeMarcus Cousins. It's going to be a team effort from the Clippers. When the Suns, it looks like Booker can just carry them.
Yeah. Like you said, Paul George is just going to need to get some more help, because he didn't have a bad game 1. From a scoring standpoint, he put up the numbers. It wasn't in great volume, but he did it. And yeah, until Kawhi comes back, and if he comes back, that's how they won game 6. It wasn't just a Paul George effort. It certainly wasn't just him. He needs the rest of the team to do those things. It needs to be team basketball. And I think overall, without Chris Paul, I would say the Clippers are a better team without Kawhi than the Suns are without Chris Paul, in my opinion. I think they've got more options. I think they're better scoring, more depth on that team than the Suns have without Chris Paul. So I think right now the Clippers need to take advantage of the situation they have. Game 1, they lost, but I think they can bounce back tonight pretty easily. If they do that, then the series is up for grabs. And if Kawhi comes back, that changes a lot, especially when Chris Paul isn't going to be there. So tonight's going to be a big one for sure. But
they'll play tonight.
You gotta see.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, sorry.
Tomorrow night? Yeah, tomorrow night. I think if the Clippers, with Chris Paul's out for who knows how much longer, probably back for game 3 or 4. But what the Clippers have to do, they have to play physical with Ayton, and especially Booker. Because what I noticed from the Lakers series is Booker isn't entirely mentally strong like that. The Lakers got under his skin. They frustrated him, and what happened? He got ejected. Twice when he played the Lakers, he got ejected. One in the playoffs and then one during the regular season. So if you can get under Devin Booker's skin and irritate him, then you can take him off his game. So I think Patrick Beverley, I think Ty Lue's job, or what he's thinking, is Patrick Beverley, frustrate him. Use all 6 fouls if you have to. Like, beat him up if you have to. Same thing with DeMarcus Cousins and Ayton. I want to say that Ty Lue's telling them, use your 6 fouls. It doesn't matter. Just play physical with them. Zubac, use your 6 fouls. Beat him up. Make it tough on him. Make a statement. Because if he's able to make a statement and show them, like, you're not going to be able to score in here like easily like you were in the past couple matchups, it's going to play with a mental toll on them in the end. But unless that happens, the Suns are going to win this series, in my opinion. And for our last topic of the day, we're going to talk about the Kemba Walker trade, going to the Thunder for Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a few more picks. The Thunder are just loading up on picks. And what do you guys think they're going to do with these picks? Because my initial reaction is Kemba Walker's not going to stay there, not at all. And if he does, it's going to be a Chris Paul situation. But I don't see him benefiting as Chris Paul did because I don't see Kemba Walker as that type of player.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think Kemba – it looks similar, but I don't think Kemba Walker obviously brings the Chris Paul effect. But I don't know. We never thought that Chris Paul was going to stay. We thought Chris Paul was done the moment he got there. So Kemba might stay too. Sam Presti's an interesting guy, but he loves his assets. He loves getting these picks. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'd have to imagine they're going to trade some of them for somebody. I think they've how many picks do they have at this point? Above
they have like 28 or something in the next 7 years or something.
That is ridiculous. Like, you've got all those picks, you can definitely make a package for a star. And I don't think they're going to use all of them. I don't think they plan to use all of them. Some of these picks are definitely going to be used to bolster up their roster. And I think they're going to use some of these picks too. They might use some of them to trade up. But the Thunder are cooking up something. Presti, I don't know what he's trying to do, but I kind of like it. You've got this much capital. You can do something with it.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Kemba starts the season with the Thunder and kind of like for Chris Paul, he kind of showed what kind of a leader he was on the Thunder. But I think Kemba will just kind of show that he's still a good player and he's just going to drop crazy numbers, even though they'll probably lose a lot of games. And then I imagine he'll be traded somewhere. But for the picks, I think for maybe 1 or 2 years, they're going to use all their picks and see what kind of drafts they get. And then based off of that team, I think they'll attract more like bigger name people to want to play there. Then maybe they could sign someone. I think obviously they're going to have to trade some of the picks. You can't have that many players. It's just way too much. But I think they'll make some packages. They have like so many first round picks, so many second round picks. They got picks to spare.
For sure, especially with Shai Gilgeous at the point guard, who's honestly I want to say is an underrated player in the league right now. He's gonna generate people to want to play with him because he's honestly a triple double threat at all times because the dude can score, he can pass, he can rebound. So that's gonna be very interesting. But I want to see that dynamic between between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Kemba Walker if they do mix together. That's what I want to see. And I had this when we brought that up about the trading the picks. My initial reaction was maybe Ben Simmons to the Thunder, but I took that out because they showed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already. So I don't know how that will work out. But the Thunder are up to something. It looks like they're after Bronny James, maybe.
They probably do have a pick the year he'll be drafted, huh?
For sure, and I'm pretty sure at the rate that they're going, if they are more, they might get them.
With all these picks, the bottom as long as they get something, it's successful. You just got with all these picks, you can get something good.
They have to get something good. It would be the biggest fail in history if they got nothing out of these like 30 picks. Which they're probably going to get a couple more from Kemba too.
It'll be like the Brooklyn Nets and the Celtics trade when the Celtics they didn't really do anything with all those picks that they had.
Yeah,
I mean they did get Tatum and Brown, so
But but years down the line.
Yeah,
there was a lot of years where there was nothing.
So Sam Presti, you got a lot of work to do. Hopefully, you can make something successful out of that because you've proven in the past that you can make drafts by drafting 3 MVPs. So you know talent. So hopefully you can get it up and starting again because OKC, that was a rocking area to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that being said, we're going to wrap up today's show. Thank you for tuning in. Catch us again on Wednesday. Bye.
Adios.